I want to ask you a question. What kind of feedback are you giving the people that you lead and influence? Is it helping them grow and get better? Today, we're continuing the series about great leaders and the habits of great leaders. And today's focus is about how great leaders give great feedback. What is great feedback? I think that great feedback is feedback that helps somebody become who they were created to be and to deliver their best confidently and consistently. So the key question for us is the feedback that we give, is it helping people realize who they were meant to be and created to be by God? And is it helping them to deliver their best confidently and consistently in the moments in life? Today, I want to give you 5 habits of about great feedback and how great leaders give great feedback. And I think it'll be 5 practical ways that we can do that and consider what kind of feedback are we giving and how can we give better feedback in those moments that matter. The first one is that great feedback is specific, timely, and relevant. So great feedback is specific, timely, and relevant. As I've led teams and I've also coached leaders on leading teams and observed great coaches and great business leaders in sports and in business and the kind of feedback they give, it's very specific, it's timely, and it's relevant to people. I think it's important. When you give feedback, you want it to be specific. You don't want it to be just, well, oh, you're doing a great job or everything's fine. You want to make sure that you're specific in that. When I tried to recognize people and teams I was leading, I would say, that question you asked in that client meeting, that was really good. Or the way you redirected the conversation, that was awesome. Or the work you put in on that proposal, that was really good. And your attention to detail and the way you communicated key points was awesome. And I think those things are more specific than you're just doing fine. And people want that specific feedback. It's also timely. You want to do it in a timely manner and make sure that it's not 6 months down the line and you're saying, oh, yeah, that thing that you did 6 months ago was really good. They probably have forgotten about it by then, and also are wondering why you didn't say something 6 months earlier. And then it's relevant to them. It's relevant to their growth, and you want to make sure that it's helping them and progressing in their career. So that's the first point, and the key question is a feedback that you're giving specific, timely, and relevant. The second point is that great feedback must always be aligned with the other person's potential to be. Great feedback must always be aligned with their potential to be. I get this from Warren Bennis. He impacted my leadership philosophy early on in my career, and just reading his books and hearing him speak. And he talked about this concept of potential to be. And I always wondered, what does that mean, your potential to be? Well, it's your potential to become. It's who you were meant to become. And based on how you're wired, what is that potential? And as a leader, are we gearing our feedback to help them realize who they were meant to be? That's so important. And so when we gear our feedback with the goal of their potential to be, they're more likely to receive that, and it's going to help them grow into who they were created to be. If we're just giving feedback and a lot of it's destructive and it's not geared towards that potential to be, they're not going to receive it, they're not going to understand it, and they're not going to incorporate it into their daily growth and their personal growth. So we need to make sure that any feedback we give is geared towards that, and it's going to be more productive. If our goal as a leader, as a bad leader, is just to tear people down and criticize them for things, then that's not geared towards their potential to be. But even in those tough messages that I need to deliver, if it's constructive and it's geared towards their potential to be, they're going to be more likely to receive that. So that's the second point. Are we gearing our feedback, even those tough messages that we have to deliver, with the goal of their potential to be and gearing it towards that? The third point is that great feedback balances positive and constructive feedback, not constructive criticism, but constructive feedback. And we have to balance positive feedback with constructive feedback. As we've done leadership programs and I've worked in organizations, one of my goals is to tear that concept that we always talk about I'm going to give you constructive criticism. And we hear that a lot in organizations and from different leaders. Well, the definition of the word criticism and to criticize is to tear down, literally. And I think that when we think about constructive feedback, it's not watering down the message. It's still keeping them accountable to those things, but it's giving them feedback that they can do something with. And constructive criticism would be, well, you're just doing an awful job. Well, thanks. I can't really do anything with that. But constructive feedback is giving them feedback that they can do something with, even if you have to deliver a tough message. And we need to balance that. In the studies that you'll read about and the studies that we've done with organizations, we have to get as leaders at least to a 3-to-1 ratio of positive feedback to constructive feedback. And the goal being 5-to-1 or 8-to-1 positive feedback to constructive feedback. The reason for that is people are going to focus more on the negative things that you say, and we need to look for those things that are positive because those are the things that we're trying to help them replicate. I know in the sports performance world and the things that I do, I try to get my athletes to journal about the things that they did well in the tournaments or the matches or the games, because those are the things that we're trying to get them to replicate and not necessarily become perfect in their weaknesses. We want them to improve on that, yes, and grow in those areas, but we want them to focus on maximizing their strengths and maximizing what they're doing well. And so that's why it's so important, I think, that we balance that positive feedback to constructive feedback. And the key question is, what is that ratio for you? And how can you get to a more productive and positive ratio that's going to help somebody develop in their career? There was an article that Chris Miller, a program director at University of North Carolina Executive Development Program, and he was leading that program, and he wrote a white paper. And I love this quote. The title of the white paper was Expectations Create Outcomes, Growth Mindsets in Organizations and How to Do That. And he said managers with fixed mindsets often fail to recognize positive changes in employee performance. They are also less likely to coach employees about how to improve performance or to offer constructive feedback. This leads to a loss of talent in organizations. And so that you're losing talent in organizations, especially with millennials and other younger generations that are coming into the workforce that want lots of feedback, but they want it geared towards helping them to grow in their careers. And what he was saying in his white paper is that most managers and most bad leaders don't even recognize movements in performance in others. And if somebody does something better and they're growing in their career and you gave them feedback on something, they're moving in a positive direction. Bad leaders and bad organizations and organizations with fixed mindsets just focus on what they used to do and don't recognize what they're doing in their performance. And so as somebody who's in tune with what they're doing and aware of that person's growth and their strengths, we have to recognize how they're improving in that and give feedback on that. And he also says that it needs to be positive and constructive feedback. And in that way, we can grow talent and lead our organizations more effectively. The fourth thing is that great feedback recognizes contribution and achievement. We talk about this in our Invisible Hand of Leadership program, but great leaders give great feedback that recognizes contribution and achievement. So in other words, we're recognizing the process and the outcomes. We're recognizing growth and achievements. A lot of times I think leaders will maybe sometimes just recognize the outcome or the achievement that somebody makes, but we have to recognize the process along the way and the contribution that they're making. So not only the achievements that they make, but also the contribution that they made. So an example of that was, great job, you accomplished this goal. But how they contributed to that or how they worked hard in the process is just as important because, again, they're not just tying it to a specific achievement, but they're tying it to the things that they did well, and you can recognize that, and then they're more likely to recreate that, leading to better outcomes and more of those same outcomes, great outcomes, in the future. So as a leader, make sure that you're not just waiting till they accomplish something well, but make sure that you're recognizing the process along the way, the contribution along the way, and giving them feedback on that too. And then the fifth and final thing that I want to offer you today about giving great feedback is that great feedback should help your team play with belief, trust, and confidence on game day. So again, put game day in air quotes if you want to, but if you're playing on a sports team or you're coaching your team at high school, college, or professional level, make sure that you're helping them grow their confidence and their belief and their trust and be able to go out and play with that on game day. and gear your feedback towards that. As a business leader, if you're leading a team, make sure that you're helping them go out on game day and play with confidence and belief and trust. A lot of times I hear coaches talking about things with their athletes or business leaders talking about things with their teams, and it may not be what we call the science of leadership or the technique or something like that. A lot of times it's based on just helping them to go out with confidence and belief and saying, I believe in you, I trust you, go have the game of your life and play to your strengths. And they talk about what those strengths are. But again, great coaches and great leaders will allow them room to navigate what the technique is, but really lean into helping them to go out and play with confidence on game day. And the key question is, are you doing that? Or are you focusing more on, hey, don't mess up? Or you're focusing so much on the technique that they're overthinking things and not really going and trusting and believing in those moments. And it's so important that we do that. There's a time and place as a coach and a business leader to focus on technique and to focus on the science of leadership. But how much time are you devoting to the art of leadership and helping them to go out with confidence on game day and when it's important? That's the art of leadership, and making sure that you are building a team that is able to, again, confidently deliver their best and consistently deliver their best. So 5 ways that you can help give great feedback to your team, no matter if it's in a business context, a sports context, or maybe at home in a life context as well. And the key questions are, what kind of feedback are you giving? And is it helping your team develop and become their best? Focus on that this week. And as a leader, make sure we up the game of our feedback that we're giving. And if you're giving great feedback, that's awesome. Continue to do that. If we need to improve in that area, make some adjustments based on these 5 practical ways that I can do. And I guarantee you that it's going to help you as a leader to grow, and it's going to help your team grow and help them to go out and deliver their best confidently and consistently, and to go out and become the people that they were meant to be. And as always, let's make the most of the moments in our life.